Hi everyone, Brian here, wishing you a wonderful Friday and a great weekend ahead. We're sort of in the highlight of a beautiful autumn. The trees are starting to turn color and we still have bright, beautiful days. So it's a great time of the year. This Sunday, as we come up to what may simply seem to be the 18th Sunday after Pentecost, will be a particular time of celebration. As soon as COVID began, the Bishop of Chicago gave us some very strict outlines. Some of you will remember that we couldn't even be in the church for a good number of months. And then when we did come back initially, it was only for a few weeks before there was a re-up of COVID cases and we had to abandon the church again. One of the good things about that is that we've learned how to live videotape both the 9 o'clock and the 10:45 services, both of which are live streamed and available to people to take in whenever they would like. For me, it's worth it because the music provided by the 9 o'clock musicians has been quite spectacular. We are, of course, getting ready to really zero in on how we can fulfill the desire of many 1045ers to once again have organ and choir at that service. It's been a bit of a devil to get there, I must admit. We've had real trouble getting people to audition at all, and those who do just haven't quite measured up to, in one way or another, to the standards that we would like. So we are still looking, and I promise you, as soon as we have information about that, I'll be passing it on. But one way in which the restrictions of COVID are ending this weekend is the recovery of sharing the chalice with all parishioners and everyone who comes to communion. Now, I must say right at the beginning, there will be probably a good number of people who would prefer not to receive the chalice at this point. I know there were people who were nervous about it at all. My own cousin, who is a lifelong Anglican in Canada, became a biologist, and I don't think he's received the chalice ever since graduating. But evidence does show, and there's been lots of research into this, that those who do share the common chalice show no additional or more serious rates of infection than the general population. So we're pretty sure that a combination of the alcohol in the wine, the fact that we wipe the chalice after each person has taken it, and the fact that lips only touch the chalice for a very short moment, and it's intake, not outtake, that it's a pretty safe reality. Of course, anytime one ups the ante of how you intimately interact with others, you are, of course, upping your risk. So I know in advance that there will be people who are so eager to return to the chalice that they'll be delighted by this opportunity, and there will be others who will continue to receive the bread only. Two things to say about that. First, if you choose to only receive the bread, the Church's teaching has been the same for many centuries, and that is that the fullness of the body and blood of Christ are in each of the bread and the wine. So we receive the bread and the wine because, of course, that is what Jesus instructed his disciples to do. But we understand that the fullness of that sacramental union with Christ occurs by participating in the liturgy itself, by praying together, by taking in the liturgy of the Word together, as well as by receiving both the bread and the wine. So if it's just the bread you continue to receive, please understand you are fully sacramentally connected to Christ in our Sunday liturgies. The second is, for those of you who've been looking forward to it, I share your joy. I am so elated that we can return to this practice. It's one simple way in which we are now beginning to live in a world that has to take the threat of COVID seriously, like we have had to integrate so many other realities into modern life. It means that we have to build our life responsibly on the reality that this particular virus is a living agent in our lives. I'm so delighted that so many of you have told me how happy you are to get the initial vaccinations and have continued to follow up with the boosters that our public health officials encourage us to take. In so doing, we are doing the very best we can before we get to church and before we enter into any community interactions. Those of us who make sure we're vaccinated and boosted are doing our part to keep COVID and every other kind of disease for which there are vaccinations at bay. That is the way each of us can individually take responsibility and compassionate responsibility for our participation in a larger society. It means that for those of you who wish to come back to receiving the chalice, it will be offered again this Sunday. And I hope that all of you who are looking for signs of how we responsibly return to community life will celebrate this and everything else that I, the staff, and the vestry are working so hard to help happen at Church of Our Savior over the coming months. So it's a week in that sense to celebrate. It's one of the first things our new Bishop Clark has done, and we look forward to working with her in the future. Thanks so much for listening. I look forward to seeing those of you on Sunday. Let me remind you, if you are someone who connects to our liturgy via the live stream or just picks up this video and does not yet feel fully welcome to come back to church in person, I am delighted to bring communion to your home. Just call Will White at the office or email him at office@chicagocos.org and we'll arrange a time. In the meantime, blessings and enjoy this autumn season.